This one really hurt, man, and it hurts because it was another one of those games where the Bulls had it in their grasp and they fell apart late in the fourth quarter, similar to what you saw last night. Now, this is the Bulls' fourth straight loss. The loss actually puts them tied now with the Bucks for fourth in the East, and it was also just brutal because with the run the Bulls went on in the third quarter, and they had the United Center rocking, you wanted to see them get their revenge win after that Grayson Allen play in the game in Milwaukee, and the momentum was there. It was looking like things were trending in the right direction, that the Bulls were going to beat the Bucks, and especially after that epic poster of a dunk by Derrick Jones Jr. on Giannis Antetokounmpo. But unlike what we have seen from the Bulls this season, the Bulls actually faltered in the fourth quarter, a team that usually comes through in the fourth, but falters in the third. But the Bulls got outscored 37-24 in the fourth quarter to lose yet again to one of the top teams in the NBA. But what I will say is this loss hurts. It sucks. Really, any loss does, but especially in a game like this where you really wanted to beat up on the Bucks and it came down to the wire. But despite all of that, I can actually live with this loss. Like, really, this wasn't a bad loss for the Bulls given the circumstances they find themselves in. And no, I'm not talking about all of the injuries. I know a lot of people have been saying it's time to put the injury excuse to bed. Like, you can't keep losing to the best teams in the league and just blame it on injuries. You at least have to win some of them. And yes, I agree. I mentioned that in my video after the loss that the Bulls had against the Miami Heat. Like, enough about the injuries. The Bulls can't get destroyed like they did against the Heat, but I can live with this loss because, one, the Bulls played hard. They played hard through the whole game. There were things that they didn't do so well, which I'll get into, but the effort and energy was there throughout this one, which you guys know I can live with a loss as long as the effort is there. The guys played really hard despite playing in Atlanta just 24 hours ago. A traveling back-to-back is hard in the NBA as it is. And to be honest, I thought that the guys were going to look much more gassed in this one, but they didn't. They actually showed more energy tonight than they did against the Hawks. And more importantly, above all things, the Bulls actually played defense tonight. That defense intensity was there, which I feel like we haven't seen in a while. And because of all of this, I really can't get that mad about this loss. And look, this is the second game where the Bulls have gone toe-to-toe with the Milwaukee Bucks, the defending champions, when they have been fully healthy. And I hate to say it because I'm using the injury excuse again, but if the Bulls had Lonzo and Caruso tonight, the Bulls probably would have won this game because Jrue Holiday wouldn't have gotten all the looks that he had tonight if you had those two point of attack defenders in the game. I have actually played decent defense on Holiday, but Holiday was just simply too much for him, especially down the stretch when Holiday was hitting some big shots. To be honest, if anything, this game, and based on what we saw the last time we faced the Milwaukee Bucks, I would even go as far to say that I would rather see the Bucks in a playoff series than the Heat or the Sixers. I've always said I would much prefer the Heat over the Bucks, but the Heat really have the Bulls number, and Spoelstra always outcoaches Billy Donovan. But for the Bucks, don't get me wrong, still a scary team, and it's damn near impossible to stop Giannis, but the Bulls have looked considerably better in terms of matching up against the Bucks than they do the Miami Heat. The Bulls also shot the ball well tonight. They were facilitating well, getting guys involved. They were keeping up the pace and moving quickly in transition. They more or less took care of the ball decently, and you had big performances from Lavine and DeRozan. Now, where the Bulls did not do so well, and really this was the difference maker in the game, and that was rebounding. More specifically, offensive rebounding. The Bulls gave up way too many second chance opportunities for the Bucks. The Bulls actually lucked out on quite a few of those, and that the Bucks didn't convert often on those second chance opportunities. But the Bucks out-rebounded the Bulls 50-40 and 12-5 on the offensive glass. And some of that was critical in those final minutes of the game where it just seemed like the Bulls could not grab a board no matter how many times the Bucks missed. And then similar to last night, the discrepancy in free throws. Part of it was that the Bulls just weren't that active and aggressive in the paint trying to draw fouls, but it was also the fact that the Bulls just committed too many fouls because they didn't know how else to stop Giannis other than fouling him, which, don't get me wrong, it kind of worked. Giannis was pretty bad from the free throw line tonight, shooting 10 for 19. But 11 free throws for the Bulls compared to the Bucks' 33. Something's got to be done about that. Sure, some of it is on the refs, but more of it is on the Bulls. You can't have that kind of free throw discrepancy. And then finally, well, wasn't great, and it pains me to say it because the guy has been straight balling for the Bulls all season and a big reason for why they have been so good this year. But DeRozan sometimes tries to do a bit too much in the fourth quarter, only drawing up isolation plays for himself that has generally worked for him. That's why people call him the king of the fourth quarter. But against the more elite teams in the league that are smarter on defense and aren't going to fall for his pump fakes, DeRozan has got to read the situation better, be smarter with his shots, and defer to his teammates, especially in tonight's instance where Zach was actually feeling it. He was playing really well. Zach had one of his better shooting nights since he's been injured. But anyway, I'm not going to give DeMar too much flack because he's been a straight assassin this season, especially in the clutch. But just some things I've noticed during this losing stretch. He tries to take over because it's worked for him more often than not, but it hasn't against some of the best teams in the league. And in those moments where it's a close game with little time on the clock and you're getting double teamed, sometimes triple teamed, and no one else touches the ball on the whole possession from the half court but you have to start thinking of alternative ways to win games. That being said, though, DeRozan still had a solid game, putting up 29 points on 11 for 30 shooting, 3 rebounds and 5 assists, but he also was minus 21 tonight, uncharacteristic of DeRozan in terms of his impact on the court. You compare that to someone like Vucevic, who I know a lot of fans were harping on him in this game, specifically in the live chat that I hosted, but he was plus 11 tonight, the highest box plus minus in the starting lineup despite his missteps in those final minutes, and really not being able to grab those boards was really key, but he was one of the more impactful players in this game, putting up 19 points, 9 rebounds in doing so, shooting 8 for 13 and 2 for 4 from 3. Lavine, like I mentioned, had himself probably his best game since the All-Star break, putting up 30 points on 13 for 26 shooting. He also had 8 rebounds and 6 assists. Lavine also had some big shots in the fourth quarter, whereas last night he was pretty quiet in the fourth. Now, I will say, I did call Tristan Thompson starting in this game. If you caught my interview with Rob Schaefer earlier this morning, which I'll leave linked on the end screen of this video, I asked him if we could expect Thompson getting the start at the 4 tonight given the length and size of Milwaukee, and also just to establish an enforcer in this game with all the drama surrounding it. Now, it didn't necessarily work out all that well. Thompson played 20 minutes and was minus 25, and I was actually surprised that Billy brought him in midway through the fourth quarter when the Bulls were playing better with a lineup of Javonte Green and Derrick Jones Jr. I think that was ultimately a mistake, actually, by bringing in Thompson, but it doesn't mean that I don't think trying out Thompson at the 4, especially against bigger teams, that should stop and that they should just give up on that experiment. Like, no, I still think putting Thompson and Vucevic out there on the floor together makes sense where appropriate against matchups like these. Anyway, like I said, it's a loss I can live with. Still very frustrating as a fan, of course, but it is still just a regular season loss, and hopefully the Bulls can bounce back next week. They're going to need to. I will say I was a little surprised that this game wasn't a little more physical after all of the hype. Like the flagrant foul on Derrick Jones Jr. against Grayson Allen, that was really it. I also thought the United Center was going to be a little more hostile. Shouldn't really be too mad about it, though. Like, the Bulls didn't let their emotions get to them. They stayed focused and played the game, showed good sportsmanship for the most part, and that's commendable. But anyway, the Bulls fall yet again. They're off this weekend until they face off against the Sixers on Monday. Geez, this schedule really doesn't get any easier. 5 straight losses would be brutal, so hopefully the Bulls can pull out some magic in that game and finally end Embiid's winning streak against the Bulls. Until then, though, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.